All right, guys, welcome back to Drag the Waters podcast, social commentary podcast from two Texas bros, where we just sit and chat and free ball, drag the waters for all the cool shit and all the bullshit, and just have a good time hanging out. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I am one of your hosts. I am Aaron James, the anarcho-occultist, sitting here with my best bro.
What's up, Lurker Mario? DT Dubs represent.
Yeah, hit him up on the Twitters. And then go ahead and like and subscribe if you're into our kind of shit, or go ahead and just give us a listen. Comment below, let us know what you think. And if you're feeling generous, $5 a month get you on the locals. Dragthewaters.locals.com, and come hang out with us there. So, how's it going, man? How you doing?
Chill, man. I had a really productive work week, really productive weekend, doing a lot of yard work, getting the vitamin D and shit. I've been reading a book by F.A. Hayek. Really good book. Relevant now as it was then. The Road to Serfdom. And it's really just opening my eyes to, not really giving a fuck. You know, there's only so many fucks you can give.
Mm-hmm. And that's the lesson, bro.
Yeah.
That is the lesson. I'm trying to give less fucks.
And
every day.
The modern culture, no, not just the modern culture, but like the modern man, the person that's living in the present, the youth, the generation, right? The millennials, now Gen Z, coming off of the boomers and Gen Xers or whatever. They've all been arguing over the same shit like every 30 years and believing that they're the most morally superior of them all or whatever.
So when you say 30 years, and you said the book, because we chatted a little bit beforehand, it was written during the Great War.
Yeah.
What we call World War One.
No, World War II.
Or World War II.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the 30-year cycle repeated in the 60s?
I mean, I guess it more like the culture war rather than like a physical war.
I'm just saying like that. Well, whatever the struggle was then, I don't even know what I haven't done research in a long time about the social and cultural norms of wartime. Other than a little bit about the Great Depression was somewhere in there. But then the next iteration probably was during the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
So between the 60s and the 70s.
Definitely, but I would say as compared to now, people in during like MLK's time had more American and Anglo values on individuality and like liberty, like on the individual basis. The book that I'm reading talks about socialism as it pertains to World War II and coming out of the World War I, like depressions and stuff, because all these countries were war torn. They didn't have their infrastructure and stuff, so they're coming up. And so there was a lot of poverty and then like collectivist ideas and people like trying to rally together because, I don't know, they thought capitalism was bad. And they wanted to shun like the American and the English like capitalist ideology.
That's what upsets me, man. Well, one thing that upsets me about the whole socialism or collectivism versus the individualism, especially in like the libertarian or the laissez-faire economic sense, is that, and the anarchism ultimately, I guess anarcho-capitalism is, that should be the largest framework to work. I mean, it is the framework. It's nature is anarcho-capitalist.
Yes.
And that's the base work. That doesn't mean you can't have small pockets of collectivism or communism or whatever. Like with my family, like my grandma's like, hey, I need, $800 to pay the rent. Like I have no problem doing that.
Right.
And stuff like that. Like, or the way we share the equipment and stuff and how and when you're building a business together, it's like you're pulling resources or borrowing. There's there's cooperation going on.
Yeah,
there.
and you're building that relationship, and then just like in any type of investment, that investment's gonna like pay dividends the longer it goes on, unless it's a bad investment. And I mean, anybody out there that's been in a really toxic relationship, I think you understand that bad investment.
Yeah, I'd say stay away from if your happiness relies on the emotions of another person, that's called codependency.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that. I'm not a trained. I'm an amateur psychologist. But if your happiness relies on someone else's happiness, that's just setting yourself up to be unhappy.
Yeah, and
Stuff like that.
This whole socialist problem back in the day, it was the same shit that we're dealing with now, as far as collectivism and the herd of weak-minded, less ambitious people, what Nietzsche would refer to as the herd.
And what we'd call NPCs today.
Yeah, NPCs.
Well, not all of them are NPCs. Some of them are, oh yeah, they are. Yeah, they're NPCs. Different kind of NPCs,
They're just guided by their insecurity and their unwillingness to stand against, or stand up for themselves, really, and then stand up against the masses, because they don't want to get persecuted. They want to be they want to fit in. They don't want to be shunned by the community or whatever. They want people to like them, ultimately. And this ended up leading to, somewhat indirectly, led towards the National Socialist Party.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even Hitler's own words were, National Socialism is fascism. So Mussolini's governance ideology. Mm-hmm. And that's also
Mussolini was originally a communist, for anyone who's unaware. And then when the communists fucking hated him because he was an asshole and kicked him out, that's when he picked up the fascist philosophy or whatever and ran with it.
Mm-hmm. And then you had these labor parties in the UK that wanted to increase, because it also comes down to people not being satisfied with how fast the government can do things. So in Western society, like America, we have the checks and balances system, and we really designed it to be inefficient so that people wouldn't get rolled on by the government, right? Mm-hmm. And so these people in the UK in Parliament were we don't like this, so we're going to go into these labor parties and we're going to advocate for socialism and advocate for autocracy, wartime, essentially what we have wartime powers now, but they wanted it indefinitely so the government can do what they did last year in China and stuff, close down your business and lock you in your house and do whatever the government tells you because they know better than the masses.
Yeah, they're smart, man. They because I think it was it Breitbart who's politics is downstream from culture, and then war is downstream from politics. Mm-hmm. Well,
war is politics.
In a way, you could say that, but especially where the government's concerned, that's like a Rothbardian thing. But these people are getting smarter. The people who are deep in it, whether they're Illuminati or deep state or whatever. And I say Illuminati is a symbolical term. Mm-hmm. You can call them the reptilians. Yeah. Pick your term for these people who are very wealthy, or very influential, very powerful people who guide all this. But to get people to get involved in politics, they started using the media attack the culture. Mm-hmm. So they can't sell communism or socialism politically. Mm-hmm. So instead of just making that the sales pitch politically, they can go, like you said, to the unions or whatever, or into the colleges, and they start selling it socially.
Yeah, and
ideologically.
Much as the same that's happening now, people would leave the UK to go to university on the continent, and they would come back hating capitalism and hating Western individual culture and embracing collectivism because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the individual in their minds.
Yeah, but you only say that, man.
What do you mean?
Most people, when their neck comes up to the chop, they're not going to sacrifice themselves for the many, unless they got a serious martyr complex.
No, but unless they are the many. But that's the
illusion.
Exactly.
You're not the many. You are an individual, participating, whether you're going with the flow or not as an NPC because you're afraid or you have to satisfy some belonging needs. Like,
Yeah.
you are not the many. No one person or committee can tap into collective intelligence accurately and immediately. I think the only way we can observe collective intelligence is through history. And even the history we have is completely biased because it was written by
Victor.
individuals. You know, it's not like I'm going to write one letter of the word and you're going to write another. I mean, it can be edited collectively in a way, but it's all biased. Even the Bible, man. The Bible's not the original manuscript.
No, yeah.
Council of Synod or whatever, like the Illuminati of the 200 AD or whatever got together and they said, we're going to feed this through the priests to the public.
Yeah, the Catholic power structure at the time.
Yeah, so they can do what they needed to do. Maybe they were good. Maybe I'm assuming they're not. They're trying to maintain power. But, you know, it's the same stuff. These wealthy people or these powerful people know that they can use this ideology and spread it.
Yeah, I think that's also why I think, what is it, the Lutherans? The Lutherans, man, I'm sorry, all you Christians out here.
The first Protestants was Martin Luther.
Yeah, I think they were the ones that were like, I don't need somebody between me and God's words. Like, I'm going to read God's words and interpret them however I want to interpret them.
Right.
Yeah,
that was the basis of it. And then all the minutia for all the other sects, you know, transubstantiation, whether Jesus was... something about the Holy Trinity, whether he was actually God or the Son and Father were separate or equal or separate and equal.
Right.
You know.
Separate but equal.
You know. Yeah. It's even the divinity can't be fucking, you know, can't be fucking collective unless you believe that.
And then
it's fucking stupid.
Back to the people who think that they're protected in the herd, you can see how clearly that's also unraveling right now, or at least on Twitter. I don't know.
Did you take psychology back in high school with
no
Miss What's Her Face?
No, I can't. I don't.
With the big nose?
I did not. I didn't take psychology.
There was one study that explains this phenomenon. It's actually they set up a room of people, and there was only one participant. The rest of the people were like shills. They were there they were part of the experiment. So what they did is basically they're doing like basic problem solving. They throw problems up on the projector or whatever, and they'd ask everyone what the answer was. But the person who was the variable, they went last. So what they told, everyone else was supposed to give the same wrong answer. Okay. And then they tested, like, does this person object to that answer? Do they agree? And I don't know if they measured brainwaves. I don't think they measured brainwaves. I think it was just qualitative. But a lot of people just went with it. They're just and a few people objected, and when they objected afterwards, they'd let them know what was up, and they asked them, and they said, I was afraid. Oh, yeah. So there's a fear response to disagreeing with the, I guess what would be originally the tribe. You know, because then your security's at risk. Yeah, because you don't want to be cast out. That's the thing is people think we're so, I mean, our qualities of lives are generally better, especially in the West. People think we're smarter, more sophisticated than like tribal hunter-gatherer people, Cro-Magnon, and we're not. Well, those people are probably more, what's the word? Is it emotional IQ? No, something social intelligence. They probably have higher social intelligence because they have to deal with the rest of the tribe all day. Yeah, there was one of the books I had, I think it was about biogeometry, which is just a weird, not necessarily potentially woo-woo subject about harmonizing energies with structures. It was fascinating, but the one thing is they say that back then they said more right brain dominant. It was like the holistic side of the brain, so probably much more aware of nonverbal cues. But with the development of language, probably kept activating the analytical side of the brains and exercising it. The more we used words, the more words were created, the more we studied rhetoric and eventually built civilization. That part of the brain grew, and then the other side may have atrophied. And I think they said in this book that we're trying to move back. Some people, probably in like the spiritual movements, are trying to move back to either to a more holistic whole brain state or back to the right side. I mean, the right side is the left side's analytical and the right side's synthetic or conceptual. it's like synthesis, where you take two things and blend them together.
Okay.
Like we've talked before about the problems with academia from the was it not the Great Work, but that series you always like.
Oh
to
yeah,
recommend.
it's what is it? The Great Conversation.
The Great Conversation about how over specialization has caused problems in academia, where people can't even speak the same language. Where a lot of the money is now is synthesizing information, being multidisciplinary in these fields to synthesize the different information into something whole and useful.
Yeah, brutal. No, I'm definitely for like reconnecting with spiritual side and like tripping mushrooms and maybe even doing a DMT drip. I understand you can get it in an IV now.
Yeah, I want it all, and it's gonna be ridiculous, bro.
Yeah.
Especially with what I've been experiencing this past week, and be like, I'm seeing the darkness, man.
Yeah, you cast magic, man.
Not intentionally. I think I do that too. If I went on a month-long retreat for fasting and meditation, the ritual would probably be a part of that too.
When you say fasting, like a month of fasting?
Yeah.
Like just water?
Probably. I mean, unless I broke, which could happen. But the whole idea would be like...
Well, that's beyond 21 days.
That's fine.
So you risk like starvation?
No, not at all. When you fast, well, one, you're in a different headspace because you're doing it intentionally. But your body... If you don't eat, your body's metabolism doesn't burn as hot because it's going to try and conserve energy. And, I mean, they've done TV shows where they put people out in the woods for a long time. These people lose like 18 pounds in a month. And in a book I read, they had a guy fast for an entire year, taking only a multivitamin every day.
What the fuck?
He was a big fat dude.
Okay.
And he was medically supervised, but he was fine. They've done fasting for spiritual purposes forever. Like Christ supposedly went and fasted for 40 days out in the desert and talked to Satan. The Buddha, one of the Buddhas, meditated under a certain tree for 40 days. 40 days is a very common theme.
That's a quarantine, right?
I don't fucking know, dude.
I think that's a quarantine.
I'm not a fucking disease specialist.
No, well, that's because
zombie motherfucker expert.
No, I'm pretty sure quarantine came from they didn't know if
four.
Yeah, so they didn't know if like stuff came plagued in the boats or whatever, so they like leave it on the boat at dock for like 40 days or 4 weeks or some shit like that, so that whatever it was would go away.
Yeah. But no, if I did, it'd be cool if I could just to buy a shit ton of mushrooms or whatever. Well, if I was going to do this 30 days, I want to do it clean to purify myself. Not to, I mean, you can do, that'd be cool too.
But if you drip DMT, like your body produces DMT, so that wouldn't really be like unclean.
Yeah, but one of the things I recommend, especially like the Vipassana retreats for meditation, they say you want to do this sober. And a lot of the magicians say you don't need drugs to do magic or experience it. In fact, it's going to be a crutch you rely on, or you can't control it as much. And that's the one cool thing about magic, is that you're more in control of these psychedelic experiences than taking just random amounts of drugs. If you're bad at, like, if you're not a chemist, you don't know how to titrate and control your dosage, like one mushroom might be different potency than the next mushroom and all kinds of stuff, right. Man.
How big you are.
Or the edibles, like, where's the THC concentrated in this brownie? It's
right.
It's a, you're rolling the dice.
It's not even.
So, now if I'm gonna do this escape, this retreat, it's gonna be clean.
Well, that sounds good, man. All power to you. Like, I'm all down for spiritual journey and shit. Like, go out into the woods, reconnect with like your, what is that? Yeah, your primitive body, your primitive mind.
I guess it's just nice to spend time in nature. Like, if you go out into the woods, the air feels thicker.
Yeah.
Like with oxygen.
More rich.
So it's like, if I go for a walk in Purgatory Creek or whatever, man, just stepping in there, just taking a breath, it feels like my lungs are more full, fuller. I don't know which one's that. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. And then you're also helping the trees out by being there breathing.
Yeah.
So, and then if it's quiet, you get, your central nervous system gets a little bit of a rest, or you get to hear, more natural sounds.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of novelty too.
I'd recommend like going out to the same spot several times and being like really still and not being like a threat. Like leaving, think of like the way a deer walks through the woods. They're not like in charge. They're not like moving towards a destination. Like if you're in the city streets, you see humans walking, they're walking like really brisk, even casually. Like people that walk slow are like walking forward with or without confidence. But in the world of nature, like that person's walking with like confidence, moving forward, like trailblazing, right? But if you look at like a deer, they like take a couple steps, they munch, they look around, they take a couple more steps. It's like really, I don't know. Imagine like splashing in a wave in water, like throwing rocks or like stomping through water, versus like taking careful steps so that there's like hardly any ripples. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you do that, it signals to wildlife that you're not a predator, unless you're like moving in a predator, like unless you're like stalking, like because then you're like you project like I'm hunting, right? But if you're just kind of like looking around, taking a couple steps, enjoying the wilderness, if you go to like the same spot several days in a row, one, you should, if you're observant, start to get an idea of like what animals live there, especially with birds, because birds have territories, like where their nests are and stuff. So, and they'll go to the edges of their territories and sing. They're pretty much singing like, "This is my fucking property. Like, this is where I fucking live." Like, that's what they're singing, right? They're singing their song to let everybody know. Is that what
Madoris do when they blast their speakers?
Yeah, I don't know.
In their cars, bro?
Maybe.
Blasting their rap music?
I don't fucking know.
This is my territory.
Fucking playing some... What is it? Zero? Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
But if you do that, you can like actually make it to where
it's got me feeling
animals don't think that you're a threat. So they'll like come and like sit next to you, eat next to you. A couple of my friends got it to where like they were feeding birds out of their hand, like wild birds, wild animals.
That's cool, man. Some Cinderella shit, man.
Nah, man, some fucking, what do they called it? Forest ninja shit.
Forest ninja.
Yeah.
God, it'd be hilarious to construe as racist, bro.
Why?
It's because it's funny. Be like, forest ninjas. They're called the Vietnamese.
Oh God.
They're called the pygmies.
Oh man.
No, I don't think they're called pygmies. I think that's also racist.
What? Isn't there? I don't know. I'm gonna stop
It's
talking.
it's just funny though. Forest ninjas.
Yeah, man. Jedi. The Jedi are real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's way cooler than like all this woke bullshit. But at least they're eating their own now, dude. They're eating their own. It's so beautiful. It's so glorious to see.
They've been eating their own I first noticed it back in 2016, I think. Yeah, man. And a lot of people think like social media is bad for this, but I woke up because of social media. If I wasn't on Facebook, I probably wouldn't have seen the articles that made me realize it was all bullshit.
Yeah.
Being freaking lefty, queer, or whatever.
Well, that's what happened. That's why Trump existed, was because it like, what is the word? It rejected like half the population,
Well, I think Trump was the president. Like, I always think the president is who we deserve as a people.
Oh God.
Like even when we don't like him, but because Trump what was he all about? Twitter, social media, talking shit. If you look at American culture, like that's what we were growing to. Because well, as far as how old we are, like we grew up we were little kids during Clinton. I don't remember any of it really.
Nah.
I first remember George Bush coming in a little bit, and then 9/11 happened, and everyone was scared and unified at that point. And
Yes.
he screwed up the economy, and some people didn't like the Iraq War. And then we had Obama, and then George Bush also couldn't speak. He sounded dumb because he was dumb. And
But he won 2 terms.
He did win 2 terms. You know, no presidents like.
And Ron Paul was crazy, which sucked because Ron Paul was the move. He was
crazy. Don't you mean right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But that's what they made. They made him off to seem as if, oh, he's like the crazy libertarian, racist, conservative guy who doesn't make any sense. But really, he was the Austrian economist.
But if you look after George Bush, what do we have? Well, one, we had a minority president, so we had a black president who was super well spoken, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's the only good thing about Obama is that he could speak really well.
Yeah, and he just did the same thing that that Bush did.
I mean, I'm not talking about policy or whatever, but and then Trump came in. He was really not part of the system, so he was just like celebrity, social media president.
He wasn't supposed to win.
The opposite of Obama, who's brash, not polished. No, he wasn't supposed to win, but they were arrogant.
They put Hillary up there, dude.
And then 4 years later, they're like, no, we got to cheat to get him out.
Yeah.
So I think Trump is a one-time deal until the left gets complacent again. They're going to be on guard next election. They got to put up a fuddy-duddy Republican.
Right.
But if Trump comes back, they're just going to do the same thing. There's going to be another illness that's going to make people stay at home.
Right.
Like, they've already got the playbook. You know, they know what works.
Yeah. They tested the waters.
So, and now after Trump, the social media, loudmouth, celebrity president, now we got a dying old man.
Right.
And that's like symbol for American people. Like, we just want the politics to die.
Right.
We're done. Or we want it to go back to be the same, but the old system's dead and dying.
Yeah, too much. It's too much. Now we're just like living in corporatism. I blame the Keynesians.
And then, go ahead.
No, it's just like we're just too far in debt, and we're spread too thin. And foreign countries are starting to realize that like it's hard to, especially since we're having like such a big like coin toss every 4 years, since the country's divided like pretty much down the middle, right? Like the same amount of senators and like House members and Congress members. It's like pretty much 50-50, right?
Yeah, they could be dead or they could not be alive.
Right.
50-50.
Yeah, exactly. So like people are starting to realize that like negotiating or like coming up with treaties or how to deal with the United States is becoming like more and more volatile, and an issue that we have with some of our competitors, other world powers, is that we're only thinking in like 4 and 8 term, or at least from my little perspective of like a working class American.
It's not we, it's the powers that be.
Yeah. From my perspective, it only seems as if like we're creating policy for 4 years or 8 years at a time.
That's one of the that's like the big negative to term limits, is that every 4 years we get to do the same stuff, and instead of having like this is what the monarchists argue, the neo-reactionaries. They say if we had one guy who owned, it's basically the own versus rent argument. If you own something, generally people take better care of stuff they own than something they borrow.
Right.
So if a king owned America, he'd probably, the idea is that he would let like laissez-faire economics to let the people take care of themselves while he taxed them. They'll take care of themselves, they'll do good work, and he gets to keep an income. But since we got kings who only last 4 years, they're going to burn that 4 years as hard as they can and milk it.
Right.
And then they get out.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, I made my shit."
They don't care.
And then I sell a book.
Pretty much, man. That's what's bad about that system, which is why I was like, other than not caring about governments, like term limits, I could care less. If you have a good candidate, you want to keep them there.
Yeah, for a long time, like your Rand Paul.
Whoever, man. I don't know these guys.
Yeah, and when our enemies, they have like 200-year plans. We ain't got that, bro.
I don't see their stuff, man. And whatever they leak to us is probably a lie anyway.
Yeah.
Or they probably think we're so stupid it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Dude, I mean, we're probably like, we're just so disconnected. Like, every time the government says anything, there's like, oh, we're 10 years away from this, or like we're 15 years away. I'm like, oh, we already have it. Yeah, I mean, there's no way you would even like hint at that. Like, there used to be a show I used to watch back in like 2006 called Future Weapons, and it was like a show on Discovery where they showed like weapons, prototype weapons to the military or whatever, and they were showing like laser cannons,
microwave cannons,
yeah, and like all this stuff, tungsten rods and shit. And I'm like, oh, if they're showing this shit now, like, we had this like fucking 20 years ago or whatever. Like, they were showing the F-35 in 2006 or whatever, and then it wasn't like officially released until like whatever 10 years later.
Well, you know,
like now we have the F-35, and it's like, whatever, dude, we've had that jet. There's probably like a new jet that shits on that jet, or like there's capabilities that jet has that, you know, we don't know. Like those companies, a good example is like there's this luxury car brand, and they turn like Mercedes-Benz Sprint trucks or whatever into like things that carry really important people around, like presidents and kings or whatever.
Like the Pope Mobile?
Sure. I know Khabib just bought like a fleet of these for like him and his crew, which I thought was crazy because they pretty much say, the dude that's talking, he's like showing, he's like, oh yeah, and the machine guns come out here, and it's bulletproof glass and bulletproof walls, and we made it a meter longer so that we can make it like look like a luxury cabin. And then there's a bunch of stuff that we can't talk about because like we just can't. So then it's like, yeah, man, private industry is pretty savage.
Yeah.
And understanding that, like, I don't know if I brought this up off or on podcast, but like when Australia sold their Royal Air Force, like a private company in California bought like 22 of their jets. Yeah. And the second bidder was Canada, and they only bought 5 or some shit like that. Like, America's crazy, man. God bless America.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that arms sales should do you think all armaments should be available to everybody?
I mean, with limits, you know.
Why limits? Isn't your paycheck a limit enough?
Because then you're talking about, then we really move towards like feudalism. Yeah. The more mercenaries. And there was an article, dude, I can't find this. I wonder if it got rescinded or deleted or some shit.
Do you use Chrome?
It was a Business Insider. Yes, I use Chrome. Well, now I use Brave.
Well, you might still have to change your search engine.
Okay.
Yeah, because anything Google is censored.
Okay. Well, there was an article I read in 2017. I want to say maybe 2018. And it was by Business Insider, and they were talking about there may be a world war or some sort of large scale, I guess, in several areas, like armed conflict, because there's a rise in mercenaries, and there's more and more mercenary companies, particularly in Europe and the Americas. And when there's more mercenaries, then it leads towards feudalism, because then you'll have somebody like, I don't know about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, but like imagine some like really influential person that's not in government having like a militia doing shit in like
private security,
third
man.
world countries. You know what I'm saying?
I'm about it, dude. It's only as bad, like, cause that only is as bad as the people. Because if you have a benevolent CEO or
feudal
whatever,
lord,
exactly. I mean, we can call it whatever we want, but yeah, it's a lord. You make a bunch of money where you can pay for, right? You can buy an entire neighborhood.
Was Takeda all that bad
to house your employees and stuff? You are their lord. If you pay for the roads that get people to your business, right? You are the lord, the lords of the infrastructure.
Well, that's what's happening in Mexico now. The cartels are like, they're building hospitals, they're building schools, they're building churches, they're building roads. And so like when the government comes in and tries to ask for informants or whatever, people are like, who the fuck are you? Like, I don't even know who the fuck you are. Like, why are you coming in my territory fucking with my shit?
Mm-hmm. You know, and
But do you want that?
I'm not incendiary, man. Like, I'm not a high conflict person, except for maybe I run my mouth too much.
Okay.
That might be the big problem. I don't care, dude. You want to sell drugs? I don't care. You want to sell armaments? I don't. As long as there's no violence or little violence, I don't care.
Right.
You know, I want my lord to have all the weapons.
Yes.
So, except I don't want my lord to be the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be more local.
Oh yeah, I'd definitely be more invested if my senator was in this county and my president was at the capital of this state.
You know, and it'd be much better because I think like your probably your city, your town, or your county should be like as big as you need to be, and everything else should be federation.
Mm-hmm. But the problem I saw with states' rights, because I'm a firm believer in states' rights. Like, I really would not mind if Washington, California, and Oregon like had their communist dream happen over there, and then like they could suffer and fall into that trap because that's all it is.
Yeah.
And then it would be like just another example over the last century of how those systems fail because central control cannot accommodate the market economy of individuals. But rather the issue I see with like strong states' rights without like a strong union, because you would still need a strong union. So like if the United States was more of a confederation, they would still we'd still need to be unified under one currency, and
we got crypto now, man. We got multiple competing currencies to choose from.
Okay, but what if like you go to
the technology's
you
better.
go to New York and like they want something else, so you're gonna have to like transfer your Bitcoin to some other token
The internet, dude,
to get to their token.
There's a Forex exchange market, bro.
All right, but wait. Regardless, we'd still need a unified military as well, because then you're gonna have what ended up happening to the Greeks, and so like when somebody came into conflict, like Xerxes or whatever came in, and like some of the states confederated against them, and then some of them didn't, you know. And so
a bigger state will come and whoop up on a smaller state.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh well, we're not going to get involved with Florida's problems. Like, that's Florida, you know, like. So, and then it also leads up to infighting, like the Peloponnesian War. It's like, oh well, you know what, New York's gotten really big, and like they're posing a threat to Virginia, so Virginia's bringing up sides, you know. So like that's the problem with like strong states' rights. Oh my god.
I think the technology though, because that's the technology changes most of the problems, because the fact that some people say that the ability to our destructive power of our firearms or our weapons is a bad thing, but that means you don't need deterrent. So if you have 10,000
deterrents
or like 10,000 soldiers coming up Florida, you don't need the same number of people to take them down as you did 2,000 years ago. Now you got the microwave cannon or whatever, or a bomb.
You just burn people alive from the inside.
Now you need, instead of you needing 10,000 warriors to take on 10,000 warriors, now you need one dude with a bomb, or a drone. So
but that's with disregard to like, what is it?
And it'd have to be really bad, because I think people got it so good, especially
with like local
here.
politics and regional politics and global politics.
Yeah. What's the thing is like,
because that all turns into leverage.
If more people were armed or had access to all the firepower, people would have to be more careful.
Oh yeah, an armed society is a polite society.
So even if I just want to bring things closer to home.
Oh yeah,
and then have access, more laissez-faire.
That laissez-faire, but I'd say mostly laissez-faire. I need to come up with a new.
Except selling people is bad.
Yeah, you know, that's the problem with the laissez-faire economy, is that allows for slaves, that allows for like whatever people are willing to make money off of, which can be like really bad, because you gotta again think to the creature that is the human being, rather than like the moral entity, you know, like, oh well, people are like intrinsically good. No, they're not, you know.
No, they're not. But I think there's enough disincentives as far as like, I would not want to buy personally a human slave. I was gonna say like, because the laissez-faire economics is just the economy.
Mm-hmm.
There's still culture and morality,
Mm-hmm.
and if you had a bunch of people like,
But then then it's not true laissez-faire. So it's got to be strategic laissez-faire or mostly laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire is just the structure. Like
Yeah.
the people are going to dictate what goes on in the community. The community is going to self-police no matter what.
Maybe.
And that's the whole idea, is self-policing.
That's the same thing with like, that's my only issue with the anarcho-capitalist dream, is that it's very much the same thing as like the communist utopia, socialist utopia. It's like an anarchist utopia, you know, because like,
No, the anarcho-capitalism just lets people settle into their communities and do what they're going to choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Dallas might not be anarchy because the governments are going to form. People are going to like,
yeah, it's going to turn into city states.
systems are going to happen. People are going to cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point of capitalism, is cooperation and not warfare.
And again, we're just building back up to a federation or like a union to protect all these small things. So that's the thing that we were just talking about, where you need like...
We need a new union, though. Our union is bad.
Our union's old.
We need to let the communities build up naturally, like businesses, and compete, and then the best one will win.
For sure. I mean, if you get an educated middle class, or like not even, if you just get an educated populace versus a populace that's educated to be workers in a machine.
I don't think you even need education. You just need to give people guns.
I mean,
if you give people guns and the ability to police themselves,
that's not going to work.
You're not going to have...
Well, you're going to have a lot of people kill off a lot. Like, you're going to get rid of, like, people are going to kill each other, like, almost immediately in certain parts of the country.
That's already going on.
Right.
So it's like, if there's...
Just let it fizzle itself
instead
out.
of letting the cops, have to, like, enforce the laws arbitrarily, like, oh, there was someone... I mean, there's always danger because bad things happen because we're humans. But if there's, like, a child molester, like... You're going to have to call the cops on him? No. The community is going to go out there
murder him.
And probably murder him.
Right.
If there's a thief, people are going to be on the lookout for that thief, and he's going to get messed up. Of course, there's always some people like, they're going to lie and be like, that dude's a child molester, and then you're going to have the angry mob show up and lynch somebody, because, as a lie. But that's a different issue.
It becomes multivariable. Like, it gets really big. It gets really big because we're living in a world with 7 billion people on it now.
Yeah.
And we have international infrastructure.
And instead of killing people, banishment should be encouraged.
Oh, I'm so down for banishment. That's like,
you fucked up here, we're not going to kill you.
Send that shit away.
But you need to go to another city. You need to go find somewhere else to live.
Yeah.
If you stay here, we will lock you up or kill you, but please go. You're free to leave.
Yeah, dude. And
you're encouraged to leave.
And send that shit with them too. Be like,
there's the internet,
like
bro.
Yeah, exactly. Like a sex offender, people get the red dots, or they're like, there's a sex offender in your neighborhood or whatever. Be like, boom, that dude. Like, so he'd be going like from community to community getting shit. So then you're creating a second class citizen too.
The hierarchy always exists.
Created, yeah.
You can't avoid hierarchies, man.
I didn't say that.
Well, you said second class, and that implies hierarchy.
Well, I guess when I'm talking about that now, it's like the same issue that you have with illegal immigrants in this country. Like, I want everybody to be American. I want people to have American values and share the dream that we have here, but they got to do it legally. Because if they just like come in illegally and then when they get a job, I mean, imagine like people are like, but they pay taxes right through their job or whatever. They pay tax. The only way that they pay taxes is through their through their commerce. Because imagine every job that you've ever applied for in this country asks you if you're a citizen or if you're legally able to work.
Yeah.
If you don't answer that question, then you're going to be taken advantage of by that person that's going to be hiring you, because now they know that like, their company is at risk just for having you in their employment. And two, they know that what are you going to do? You're going to call the cops and say that they're fucking you over?
Let the community handle it, bro. Like,
yeah.
do you want the illegal aliens to be like, well, I do need someone to cut my grass. Maybe we should let,
Well,
Juan
that's why these
join our
leftist
community.
elitists want illegal people living in, and working in their community. But that's not good for the immigrants in question.
The leftist is all about expanding enfranchisement. So they don't care about illegal immigrants except as how they can maintain their own power.
Right. You just agreed with me in a different set of words.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. I'm saying the Republicans be like, they'll say no illegal immigrants and then have one cut their grass, But the left is different. It's all a power play with them.
Mm-hmm.
I say
it's grandstanding and rhetoric.
The community, one that don't believe really in law, but if the community can self-police. If someone shows up, doesn't cause any problems, maybe they'll be allowed to participate. And then when they, and then the community will organically adjust.
I'm down with volunteerism.
Yeah.
That's a great system.
Yeah.
That's mostly laissez-faire.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, the issue that we have now is that there's a lot of, similar to the roadblocks put in academia, you also have roadblocks put in the workforce.
Yeah, and it's all red tape from the bureaucracy.
Yeah, so it's limited growth or controlled growth or something.
No, that's why I'm anarchist.
It's not full growth.
That's why I'm mostly anarchist, man. It's the government just fucks everything up.
Yeah.
And if the government is smaller, it's more manageable.
Absolutely.
So
I think we agree on this.
And then the people want different stuff. So different community want different things. Let the community handle it.
Right. But we still need the union or the federation. Like you have the European Union. But I mean, also the European Union
it should be a voluntary
federation.
Because like if we bring it back to Texas, what if our Central Texas wants something different than Dallas? But we have to be, because Dallas has more power in the Texas government, theoretically, hypothetically, and then we're being technically oppressed by Dallas-Fort Worth morality or whatever.
Yeah, well, fuck them. I mean, if Texas was its own country, states' rights, it'd be states' rights within the state. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I imagine that there would be something along those lines. If we did have more states' rights, so instead of being a bunch of little counties in the state, it'd be like a bunch of little counties in the state inside the state, right? Because you'd have to have more representation within the regions inside the state to dictate the rules of the state. Maybe.
Depends.
Yeah, because I mean, shit, like, that's what I was saying. If Texas seceded, people were like, oh, well, we'd never legalize marijuana. It's like, well, because then we'd have states' rights, and like Central Texas would legalize that shit, like almost like first year probably.
Well, it depends on who controls the guns. If the Texas government takes over the security of the whole of Texas, and they decide that
wouldn't happen, because we'd be forming a new constitution.
Not necessarily. I mean, maybe. I think Texas already has a constitution, if I'm not mistaken. So they probably follow that. They probably they're going to be lazy, bro. They're not going to come and try to make the dream country. They might say maybe they will, like, we're going to secede, and then we're also going to redraft. And
you think
they're going to redraft it to the benefit
of themselves,
of the elite of Texas.
And it's the same problem with socialism too, is that
there's still an elite.
Yeah, there's always going to be an elite class.
That's the goofy. That's what I'm saying.
And they're just going to be appointed by the government rather than through their own merit.
And in a laissez-faire economy or a deregulated economy, there's the most mobility.
And we'd have to argue, we'd have to go against the Keynesians, which is already the system in power that we have, plus all the old money.
Well, we are. I mean, we're talking here.
Old money, dude.
But I talk about this stuff for fun. I'm gonna live whatever's.
Play the cards.
This is a sandbox game.
Play the cards.
It's a sandbox game. I got the rules to follow, the cosmic laws, and then
man,
if I can get away with smoking pot over here, maybe I do it.
And we got dealt such a good hand.
Yeah, man.
American male, 2000s, and it reminds me of that scene in The Matrix where he's like, "We simulated human civilization at the height of its power, right before artificial intelligence. Yeah. Yeah, it's like 2000s.
Yeah. I guess, man.
Yeah, because once the AI got the power, then it wasn't our world anymore.
Something like that, yeah, man. No, it's fucking great to be alive. We don't have to struggle for survival.
No.
You know, and
Abundance.
So, and that's like the primary driver, survival, and then the next one is reproduction and sex.
Yeah, in the Western world, I think we just like starved out millions of people in the third world last year.
How so?
By disrupting the supply chain, by shutting down.
The local supply chain?
No, the global supply chain.
Well, I'm about to say, like, if people are starving in Africa, what about all the farms in Africa? There's got to be food production in Africa.
I don't know, man. Let's look at this article. I'm pretty sure it was the United Nations that was like going against shutdowns because hundreds of millions of people were going to starve to death in the third world.
Screw the shutdowns, man. The shutdowns were terrible. Let people manage their own risk.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it was,
and we're still going to die anyway.
If it was real laissez-faire, then people would have chose. They would have had the freedom to choose whether or not they wanted to participate in the economy during COVID-19.
Yeah, it's an economic decision.
Yeah, and rather than us being like, oh well, I'm going to make money, because like even at my job, right before we ended up shutting down the site for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
They were asking people, it's like, okay, do you want to cut hours? Do you want to like take a couple weeks off or whatever? And people were like, yeah, I don't want to work. Blah, blah, blah. And when they came to me, I was like, bro, I'll take up all the fucking hours. Like, I'm gonna keep going until we shut down, you know? So like everyone's going to weigh their own risks. Mm-hmm. It's like the same in the stock market, same in gambling, except gambling has an addiction to it, you know? But people are going to choose whether or not they want to participate. And
well, they should have that decision.
Yeah.
But we had a central decision.
Yeah.
That said, shut it down.
That's what's wrong with the government and giving them too much central power. And that's the same thing with the socialists when we started this conversation.
Cultural enforcers.
Wanting to give more power to the government because they themselves are not satisfied with how autocratic or how efficient the machine works, because they want what they want.
They want daddy
now
to give them an allowance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fucking...
And they think that they're going to dictate what's better because they know what's better than
fucking arrogance,
the labor class. Yeah.
Yeah, they get me going, man.
Intelligentsia.
So freaking...
What is it? The UN has warned of famines of biblical proportions as a result of COVID-19 and the measures to contain it, projecting a number of people in the crisis level hunger will rise to 270 million before the end of the year, an 82% increase since 2019.
Yeah. I believe governments fuck shit up, man. They don't do anything good, or if they do something good, it's incidental.
And that stuff's like out of sight, out of mind too, because they're just like, well, my constituents are happy or whatever, they're morally superior than like their racist counterparts.
Yeah. You think CNN is going to report on the lockdowns killing people? No, it's not going to happen, because everything's part of an agenda, man. Mm-hmm. It's becoming increasingly transparent, except for the NPCs that are already locked in and addicted. Mm-hmm. Of course, I've seen the flip side to that, and it's also just as ridiculous.
Yeah, the Q people.
Yeah. It's just they think Obama's still running the show or everything, and I just try to let it go, man.
Yeah, and that stuff's gonna be around because people have the need to create a boogeyman and like an enemy and stuff. Like,
it's tribalism. It's the same thing, trying to find self-esteem from the team.
Like Hoover did well, but you don't know that Hoover did well during the Depression, because the public perception of him was that he was incompetent and unready to like solve the problems for the nation. Mm-hmm. And then they used Hoover as a weapon to like cancel his party that was against the Progressive Party at the time for like another 30 years. And so they're probably going to do the same shit with Trump for the next like 30 years. Like the next fucking, what is that? 3 divided by 4, 8 election cycles, dude. They're going to be like, oh, it's just another, this is Trumpism.
It's funny, dude. If I'd be president, it'd be like, all right, we need you to sign this. It'd be like, leave it to the states.
Boom.
Next question.
Leave it to the
states.
states.
Leave it to the states. Mm-hmm. If I was a state governor, I'd like, leave it to the counties.
Yeah.
Leave it to the county.
That'd be great. You know, and people would get what they paid for.
Yeah, because then the elections would really matter. Mm-hmm. Like City Hall, be like, we'd be all over, bro. Mm-hmm. Be mad.
Yeah, they'd be like, do y'all want to fix these roads, or do y'all want to build this school, or blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, man.
You have to talk to Texas State University, be like, will you pay for the roads?
Dude, Texas State's got so much money, dude.
But they're a government school, so they're subsidized and evil.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, and I'm glad we live here in Texas. I understand that a lot of countries or states in the Midwest are more handicapped because the Fed bought a bunch of land out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they're national parks or not, but I understand that the federal government has purchased so much land that it's hard for like these little towns to expand or to like build anything of worth or of note.
Yeah.
Because they're like so crammed in. And so since there's scarcity, there's artificial scarcity.
Drives prices of everything up.
Yep.
Real estate. Yeah, screwing over poor people all over again, man.
And I remember there was like a conspiracy in the 2000s where they were like trying to force everyone into like big cities, and that's why they wanted to increase the minimum wage and buy up swaths of land in the Midwest and like force people into the big cities. Because if you increase minimum wage to $15-$20, a lot of the little towns aren't going to be able to support their local economy, and so people are going to have to go to town to work.
Yeah.
And all that shit. Live in town so that they could
feed the big corporations that can
contained.
Eat the expense, man. Mm-hmm. It's garbage. Garbage.
Yeah, and a lot of it's always that saying, the more you read up on it and the more you just gain the experience. That saying, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah, and there's another one that I think I've heard it from Michael Malice. I think he's quoting C.S. Lewis, that the worst kind of oppressor is the one that's doing it for your own good.
For your own good, yeah.
Yeah, because then they think morality on their side.
Yeah, and then Reagan also did, what is it? The worst 11 words or something is like, I'm the government and I'm here to help, or some shit like that.
Yeah, people don't like. Lately, I've been having this thought. I've talked to you about it, that I am evil. And I think the reason I want to say I am evil is because I know that the real evil people claim goodness. So it's like, because if someone who's really evil, why would they give themselves disadvantage?
Are you Luciferian?
Probably.
Heard that. Probably,
yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, I like to think of myself as a benevolent villain.
Okay.
Like, I'm good natured. I want good for everybody, but I want good for everybody so that my life is easier.
Yeah.
Because when people are desperate and stuff, then it makes me a little, dicey.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm not. I could say I'm a good guy, but I think the word's good. It's loaded.
Yeah. And what is it? Good and evil.
And who is not going to claim goodness?
Mm-hmm.
Very few people say I'm a bad guy or I'm evil.
Well, unless you're playing the heel.
Yeah. It could be a manipulation tactic. That means you're in.
Right.
So.
Like McGregor, or who was it? Kane, Undertaker. Undertaker switched back and forth.
I mean, I guess you could have some serious power and really claim you're a bad guy or evil.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like, I'm evil. What are you gonna do about it?
Well, anti-heroes, dude. Like, that's what, like, Venom's really popular, and the Punisher.
Oh, maybe that's what I am.
Or Rorschach.
I'm not a hero, vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
Except I'm lazy, and I'm more concerned with living the good life. I'm Aaron James, the anarcho sorcerer. you know, making the best of life,
Heard that.
you know, for this incarnation.
Yeah, that's really all you can do, right? And I mean, some people would say that it's a strength to embrace your shadow, right?
Oh, definitely. If more people did that, the left would probably lose 80% of their people,
Mm-hmm.
if not more. That's the whole point of the left, that is we have not resolved collectively as the shadow of World War II. We haven't resolved, well, even goes further back than that. We haven't resolved the shadow of colonialism and the shadow of fascism and Nazism.
Well, I don't understand that, because colonialism, like, history is history. You can't do anything about history. All you can do is like learn from history. So when people like bring up these historical atrocities or historical,
We're healthy, bro. Like, we're healthier.
oh yeah,
That's the thing is,
yeah,
if you repress the shadow, you project it.
mm-hmm.
So these people, like, what do they call someone who doesn't agree with them that makes them mad?
What, a racist, a bigot,
They call them Nazis.
Nazis.
Which means that they haven't resolved, like, the Nazism, where they say this is a colonial patriarchal power structure.
Right.
They haven't accepted the fact that they have those tendencies within them, within the society, and it's natural and normal to be tribalistic.
Mm-hmm.
They think there's some goody two shoes,
But
because they're covering for the horrible guilt and despair they feel,
mm-hmm.
the darkness inside them, instead of just dealing with it because it doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. They're not having that serious conversation with themselves, right?
Yeah. A lot of people, it's more like they project more like, well, on an individual level, it's like, oh, that person's an asshole. That person's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if you think everyone's an asshole,
You're probably an asshole.
yeah,
Heard that.
that's probably the issue. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Well, these people probably, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just a lack of critical thought. I mean, I don't understand, because if you just, and I understand, I do
religion.
understand that we have a tendency to think that people will like have a similar thought process to our own. Yeah. So like, I find it really hard that people can't see the logic. Like, there's like, most of these arguments are just illogical fallacies. They're logical fallacies. They're just, mm-hmm. They don't make any fucking sense. Well, like, that's why English or just language, like writing, is important. And that's why they always try to change the definitions of words, mm-hmm. to like come up with their own meaning. And then they're coming up with this fake rhetoric, coming up with this sophistry to like try and sound like it makes sense when it doesn't make any sense at all, right?
Right.
Or deflect, or just be like, and that's why or go straight to ad hominem, right? Like,
well, it's all mind control tactics, man. It's all black magic.
Mm-hmm.
You control, like, language is downstream from thoughts.
Right.
So if you control someone's language, they can't express themselves properly. You give them the frame to work in. That's what they're working with.
It's newspeak.
So,
or double speak.
Double speak, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't claim to be good.
Right.
That's why I say I'm evil.
Evil.
Because if I said I was good, the people who are really evil are going to say they're good. So
it just reminds me of
the people
King Diamond.
You're not evil. I'm like, yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm a good person, because then you're going to have different expectations of me.
Mm-hmm.
If I just tell you that I'm evil, it's different. It's like, I'm not the nice guy. I'm the bad boy.
Yeah, but just because you're evil doesn't mean you're a bad person, you know? Like, just because you have bad thoughts.
No, I'm just selfish and arrogant.
Bad person.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, that has good qualities, you know?
Yeah. Well, man, we're about to hit an hour 5, brother. You want to take us out? Close us out?
Yeah, man. I guess everyone, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you guys, dude. Like, I don't think you understand. You 7 or you 10 or whatever, man. Y'all are fantastic. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let people know about this if you really like us. Comment below. I want to talk about you. What y'all want to talk about. Let's talk together. Follow me on Twitter, Mario_DTW. Follow us at dragthewaters.locals.com. There's not a lot of content there, but once y'all start getting in there, you're going to have direct access to me and AJ. And so we're going to be talking shit with you guys. It's going to be fantastic.
Hey, that'll be fun, man. We talk all this darkness and stuff, but we're really just trying to live our best lives and to make life better. So you can come be a part of that with us.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we'll see y'all next week. Cheers.
Yeah, see you next time.